Now we are talking about the Hindu education, that is Hinduism, and in the medieval time. So you know what was the ancient period till now, in which we were discussing about the different instances. Now we are going to discuss about the medieval time. In this time, what happened is, during medieval time, the Hindu education, what it continued to be in the ancient lines only, on the main operation, I mean the operate on the ancient lines. Then what happened? The great centers of learning suffered a decline amount of onslaughts of early Muslim invaders. Because of them, what happened is it deprived from the government patronage. Later, the system was like Patashalas or elementary schools. Then the next stage was tolls and colleges. Then it was about the private schools, which aims and disciplines were there, and also the methods of teaching were different. So it was like, firstly Patashalas or elementary stage was from the age of 5. Here they used to teach the learning, reading, writing and arithmetic things of the basic level. And some types of education like elementary things were they used to get is, usually Patashalas were held in verandas of some houses or under tree premises of the temple, etc. That was like the necessary funds were provided by individuals as a matter of religious duty itself, like every person acquiring the personal merit to the next world. Then what happened to tolls and colleges? Were tolls were seats for higher learning, when the students were taught Sanskrit languages. When they go to the higher level like tolls and colleges, they were taught Sanskrit literature, kavya, which means a poetry. That's the reason there were many poets at that time who has used to write beautiful poems and stories and novels. And vyakarana, jyotish, which means astrology, and chanda, which means rhetoric, and Nirukta, which means lexicon, philosophy, medicine, history, geography, Puranas, Vedas were taught at that time in tolls and colleges in medieval period of Hindu education. Later, what about the concept of private schools? Here the private schools, the chief aim of the schools were imparting the character building, development of personality, and also they have concentrated on preservation and ancient culture, inculcation of spirit, of the social service and performance of the religious duties. Because this is very important considered in the view of their aim of private schools. They wanted to impart all these the ancient rules and things that should be preciously, like that should be contributed to the next generations. And the discipline was like, special emphasis was laid about the discipline was like self dependence. And the physical punishments were not at all given. That was also rarely given to the people who are not performing or behaving properly. The types of methods were there, 4 kinds of methods, I mean the stages. In the first stage, it was written like writing letters, alphabets on the sand. Later the palm leaves were given, where they used to trace with the charcoal ink with the red pen. In the third stage, they used to write, students used to pronounce and components, like using sentences, distinction between letters, and colloquial languages, arithmetical calculations, multiplication tables, etc. And then finally, in the fourth stage, they were taught to write on a paper for writing. So like how we use the slate, then the paper, then the pencil, then a pen at the last, later now the recent laptops and iPads and computers. So that is how step by step they are learning everything. And the curriculum was like elementary education, later tolls and colleges, then the private schools. The Purana salutations of goddess Saraswati was important. So the goddess, mostly the goddess they pray was goddess Saraswati. Before starting any new concept or new thing or new academic year, they used to develop, I mean the quality of worshipping goddess Saraswati. And the talking about the fees, there was no regular fees, but there was a personal, they used to render a personal service to the teachers. And sometimes like there was, that was like a noble duty. So they didn't want but this was not supported by the Muslim rulers, but it was only supported by the rich Hindus supported this. And decline of Patashalas, what happened? Because before the British rule, the 1 lakh Patashalas having about 20 students have held in the village temples, shops, under the trees, in the Guru's house, has declined completely in 1854 because of the British has started fixing the fees and timetables, textbooks, etc., in order to improve the education. But that has recently, I mean, very speedily have fallen down, and the new system adversely affected the lives of many poor students because they cannot bear the fees that was fixed by them, and autonomy of gurus and patashalas leading to decline, because maybe there are a few gurus who were okay with it, but many of them were also not okay with it. So that way it was like for the decline of this education.